I'm Charlie Simons, your host here on Do Not Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing, liking, subscribing, wherever you're watching or listening to this. You help us so much when you subscribe to the channel, and especially on Rumble, as we're trying to really put our focus in there. And this is a TV show, but a lot of people are listening as a podcast on Buzzsprout and so on. We're on all the major platforms except YouTube. They keep kicking us off, so screw YouTube. I'm all about Rumble anyway. I like it. It might not be quite as easy to use and navigate as YouTube is, but YouTube's been at it a lot longer. So give them time. Give them time. And after they stuck to, yes, we're going to let Russell Brand stay on our platform, and no, we're not even going to let countries tell us that we have to take him off. You don't even know what the charges are. It's like 20 years old. And were you this adamant, by the way, when people came out of the woodwork talking about Bill Clinton and how he was, talking about Joe Biden? Were you this adamant about taking them off? No, you certainly were not. So sit down. The adults are talking. Leftist freaks. So Russell Brand is funny as heck. And you know him originally as an actor. And if the name doesn't sound familiar, if you ever saw a picture of him, you go, oh yeah, the English guy, he's funny. Yeah, he is. And his show is very funny, but he's also super off the charts smart. So I'm a fan. I've watched many of his shows. And someday I'd love to have him on as a guest. I don't care what kind of charges have been brought against him. That doesn't make him guilty any more than these charges brought against my president make him guilty. Those charges are trumped up and stupid and ridiculous. And Russell Brand, who used to be way on the left, is way on the right. And he's not shy about it. So all of a sudden, he's getting attacked. As he gains traction more and more, he's got millions of people now watching him. He's kind of like the British Joe Rogan. He's heading that way. And all of a sudden, they couldn't care less what he was doing until he went conservative. And went, yeah, these people have been lying to us all along. How dare you talk that way? We're going to destroy you. But Rumble didn't. Rumble stayed. That's why we're staying with them, and we're happy to be here on this channel, rumble.com/do-not-talk. But you can help us by subscribing to it. That was a long way to go around to say, please subscribe to this channel. Doesn't cost you anything. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. There's no hidden charges or surprises. Just subscribe. And it shows that we have this amount of people. If we can break 1,000, we'll start getting monetized. Now, I know 1,000, anybody else who's watching any of these other shows, they're getting shared like crazy. By the way, my friends, that's why they get all these subscriptions and all these views, because you are sharing their shows. So if you share mine, I sure would appreciate it too. That'd be a big help. But subscribe to the channel wherever you're listening and watching. Clay Novak is a fighter and a military dynamo. His stories are incredible. And he actually decided to write one down as fiction. He's written a book. His name is Clay Novak. I'm going to introduce him to you today on Do Not Talk. And I just got back from the California GOP convention. GOP, by the way, I never want to assume that everybody knows. If you're always hearing Republican and GOP and you're confused, what's the difference? There is no difference. I don't know why we call ourselves a GOP. I think it's dumb because the Democrats don't have anything like that. And it's just another way to confuse people, in my opinion. Plus, considering what GOP stands for, Grand Old Party. That's nice that it's some kind of tradition, but it's got old in the name. So right away, most people now are like going, I'm a millennial. I don't like anything old. But that's what it's called. Grand Old Party is the Republican Party. Clarification. I never want to assume that everybody knows that. So I went to the GOP Republican convention down in Southern California, Anaheim, and saw a lot of people speaking who are running for office that they haven't heard of them. They've never run for anything before. They just got fed up and they said, I got to do something. These are the people I really, really respect. They go to the top of my list of admiration When you step up and you go, somebody's got to do something, I'm going to run for office. I don't know how to do this. I've never done it before, but I'm going to go for it. And I'm just going to be me and let the Lord work it out. Let the chips fall where they may, as they say. I saw a lot of people like that down at this convention. I'm glad I did. And I met them, and I'm going to have them on the show. I'm handing out cards and I'm getting theirs. And I'm going, yes, I want to help you. I want to help you. Nobody else is. These podcasts, oh, yeah, I'll have you on if you're a name, if everybody knows you. I'm not interested in those people for the most part. I already know what they think. They already told everybody over and over. I want to introduce you to people who are up and coming. You'll have offer some hope and change, the real good kind, not the Obama kind. This guy right here fits this example very well. His name is Hung Kao. Check him out.
This is the scariest sound you will hear when you live in a communist country. This is the last sound my parents heard when their fathers were taken away in the middle of the night, and they never saw their loved ones again. That's the sound of losing your freedom, the sound of always living in fear. That's my family's real life story. We escaped from Vietnam just days before Saigon fell to the communists. We were given a new life in the most generous country on earth. America saved my life. I graduated from the United States Naval Academy. I earned a master's in physics and fellowships at MIT and Harvard before the left replaced merit with racial quotas. I spent my life trying to repay my debt to America, my country, our country, with 25 years of service in Navy Special Operations, combat in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia. But now our country has taken a dark turn. That's Joe Biden's Justice Department sending 24 armed agents to arrest a pro-life activist in front of his family. That's Joe Biden's IRS raiding a gun shop and seizing thousands of records from law-abiding gun owners, our names, our addresses, our social security numbers. That's Joe Biden arresting his challenger in the next election, a former president of the United States. And now a different sound. That's the sound of someone breaking into your home or business. The sound of crime destroying our cities and communities. That's how it all starts. They let criminals back on our streets. Millions of illegal immigrants pour across our border each year, including military-aged men from all over the world. And enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in this country. And the Biden family? Well, that's how it works in a dictatorship. The rules don't apply to the rulers. We are losing our country. You know it, but you also know you can't say it. We're forced to say that wrong is right. We're forced to lie. We can't let that happen. I've been all over the world. Believe me when I tell you, if America fails, there's nowhere else to go. I'm Hung Kao, retired Navy captain running for the United States Senate. I still believe America can be the land of opportunity. I have an obligation to fight back against those who want to control our lives and disrupt our families. We need real fighters, not politicians, not bureaucrats, not keyboard warriors acting tough in a custom-made suit. No, not here in America. We must refuse to be intimidated. We must be fearless. I'm Hung Kao. I'm running for Senate, and I approve this message because I'm not done fighting for us.
Captain Kirk, let's get him on the show. You're better at getting guests than I am. Hung Kao. Man, oh man, that's awesome. More power to him. Clay Novak is my guest today on Do Not Talk. Clay Novak is he's a warrior, just like Hung is. He's a warrior in the U.S. Army. And he got out and he's like, well, what do I do now? I think I'll write a book. And we'll find out all about it coming up next. And he's on Do Not Talk. Hit it.
Yep, here he comes. riding his trusted steed through the Sierra foothills as he brings you the news. He calls himself
Charlie.
What you doing, Charlie?
Sorry, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. There you are. Look how cute you are. Yeah.
Hey, Charlie. What's with the dark glasses?
And now, here he is, a man of God, living in a world of Disney.
Ow, Charlie!
CharleeSimons.
Charlie bit me.
My guest on this Do Not Talk is a stud. Best way to put it. Clay Novak was commissioned back in '95. That's when Bill Clinton, who really cares, who was president of the United States. Not a good time to get into the military, but that's what he did. And he became a second lieutenant of infantry, served as an officer for 24 years in mechanized infantry, airborne infantry, and cavalry units. U.S. Army Ranger. That's where the stud comes in. And I have a friend who's a Green Beret. I have a lot of friends in the Corps, a lot of friends in just military period. And I've been honored and privileged to be able to serve in my own capacity with the California State Guard, with the California Military Department, because I was physically unfit to be in the big boy Army. Clay. Hello, Clay Novak. Yeah, I had all kinds of things wrong with me. So I tried, especially after 9/11. Man, I tried to get in. They're like, go away. You got too many things wrong with you.
You were probably standing in a long line after 9/11, Charlie.
Well, I was trying to
your effort. I really
when
did.
I was in college, I was trying to get into service. Eyes were shot. Now they've had LASIK. Knees were knock-kneed. Now I've had fake knees put in, so my legs are straight. And then you throw in the asthma. That was kind of like the kicker right there. But now I get to serve.
You're the reverse of me. I ended up with all of that when I got out. By the time I got done, knees are shot, need my eyes done, body's beat up, but I wouldn't trade it. Not a minute of it.
I was going to ask you that. You grew up in a family of hunters and shooters, so that was no big whoop to you. You're used to carrying a gun, whether it's hunting or whether it's in combat. But when you have, deer and elk don't shoot back.
No, it's definitely different. I mean, I grew up, like you said, recreational shooter, competition shooter, and truthfully a shotgun guy. Was birds and clay targets. That's what my family does. Yeah, so I went in the Army. I actually started in '92, Charlie. I enlisted in the Illinois.
Oh, you'd have to. If you're already second lieutenant by '95, you'd have to be already.
So I enlisted in '92 to help I grew up in a blue collar family, and I had an older sister in college. I had a younger sister behind me, going to go to college, trying to help mom and dad out. So I enlisted in the Illinois National Guard to help pay my way through college. Policy was, probably still is, that if you go to a state school and you enlist in the Guard, they pay your tuition, right? So I enlisted as an infantryman, and I spent 2.5 years, give or take a little bit, in the Guard, simultaneously with ROTC at Western Illinois University, and then got commissioned in '95, like you said, and then went on active duty by choice as an infantry officer.
You were there then when 9/11 happened here.
I was.
Well, no, actually, you were probably stateside.
I was
sent over there as soon as 9/11 happened, right?
Yeah. So I was a company commander of an airborne rifle company at Fort Bragg, formerly Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty. That's a whole different discussion. As part of the 82nd Airborne Division, and we were, and the division still is, they're the 911 for the president. So when he needs mass forces capable of forced entry operations, he calls paratroopers because they can do that. So we didn't know what was happening that day. Nobody knew. I mean, you remember, it was a horrible day. And we all thought we were blowing out. I actually had guys that morning pulling weapons out of the arms room. It was a reflex action, right? We didn't know where we were going.
Repeat that. Say that again.
I had my soldiers taking weapons out of our arms room in the, precautionary measure of, we're going to pack up and fly out.
Nobody knew how big this was either. They didn't know if this was a concerted effort, if it was nationwide, or if those 3 planes were it. Nobody knew. We couldn't fly. How many of us remember? We couldn't even fly. Yeah. People were stuck at airports, stuck in cities because they were not. The FAA was not even allowing any flights. We had no idea how big it was. The president couldn't even land. They had to fly him around in Air Force One until they ascertained that it was safe to even land. Right. No, we had no idea how big this was going to be, but we figured out pretty quickly this is a terrorist attack, didn't we?
Yeah, and so we, what we ended up doing for this very, very short term was we secured Fort Bragg because, like you said, we didn't know if it was a widespread domestic terror incident. We didn't know what was going on, so we secured Fort Bragg, locked it up. Nobody in or out. I didn't go home for the first, 72 hours or so after 9/11. And then, eventually fast forward about 9 months or so, 2002, I set foot in Afghanistan for the first time out of 3, as a company commander and in charge of a rifle company of 150 guys. And it was very, very early. It was very, very austere. And we were the second rotation in the country.
We were we were caught shorthanded when you got deployed over to Afghanistan or Iraq after the attack. You were there for half a year, even a year, weren't you?
First time was 6 months. And then fast forward over time, the deployment timelines changed drastically. I was there 6 months in 2002, and then I went to Iraq at the tail end of the surge for just a very short period to kind of fill a gap for somebody, but then turn right back around a year later, did a year in Baghdad, was home for 7 months, did 13 months in Kabul, was home for another, I think a little over a year, and then did another 6 months in Afghanistan. But the deployment timelines changed over and over again. Like you said, when we were there first time, 6 months. I was home from Afghanistan before the war in Iraq ever started. I was there and back already because Iraq didn't start until early 2003.
That's right. It was Desert Watch.
Yeah.
Before it became Desert Storm.
Yep. So, invasion of Iraq part 2, whatever you want to call it. It didn't kick off until early 2003. I was already home. Had did a combat tour, a 6-month combat tour in Afghanistan, and come home already.
Were you there when they found Saddam Hussein in his spider hole, as the media called it?
Not. I was actually no. I was though. I was in Afghanistan when they killed bin Laden. I was the aide de camp for the 3-star who was running the ground war at the time.
It's like everybody but the media knew that Saddam Hussein was in Afghanistan. And yes, there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, because we know Saddam Hussein had used those earlier on his own people, the Kurds, and they have massive tunnels underneath, and they transported a ton of weapons over to Syria. What's happened to them from there, I don't know. But did you see any of those tunnels? You all knew about that, didn't you?
I did not.
This going back to 91, though. This going back to 91.
But I mean, we all, the intel was out there. That was, as much as it was sold WMDs, there was a lot of reality to that. I didn't hit Iraq for the first time until 2007. So we were dealing with insurgency by the time I got there. I was not there for the ground war, but I spent most of my time in Baghdad. So it was, I didn't see any of that. I do know people that saw storage facilities, all empty, all unoccupied. So obviously, the remnants were there. Could you say that was back to when, Saddam used them on the Kurds back in the, 90s after we left? Sure. Could you also say that there was things in there all the way up to the invasion in 2003? Yeah, probably. But I was not there until much later. 4 years later.
But yet you still have, you're a modest guy. I tried to find information on your service. I know that you do have at least one Purple Heart.
No, not wounded in combat.
You did not get wounded in combat?
I did not. No.
Well, tell us about some of your accommodations, though.
No,
thank God, exactly.
Yeah. No, three bronze stars for service in combat. Those are probably the top tier. I'm a combat infantry badge holder. As an infantryman, 5 tours over there, I got shot at plenty of times to qualify for that. I'm a master parachutist. I spent a lot of years, 10 years jumping out of planes. Still do in my spare time, even now that I'm retired.
Quit.
These guys right here, Phantom Airborne Brigade. It's a bunch of veterans down in Florida. It's a great veteran service style organization, 501(c) nonprofit. It's a bunch of vets that jump round canopy, military style parachutes. And I go down there about 3 times a year.
Which means you're falling a lot faster. The military parachutes do not work.
Free fall skydiving kind of stuff. This is like, a longest day, band of brothers, kind of parachuting. So it's, but I still do it. I love it. I get to hang out with a bunch of paratroopers, which are all my kind of people. So it's a good time. But
I'll fly that plane for you, but jumping out of it just seems absolutely ridiculous. No reason for it to me. I don't get it.
All of my family.
A friend of mine is a ranger, and he told a story about one time parachuting. It was a night jump into Afghanistan, as a matter of fact. Yeah. And it was after 9/11.
Yep.
And he told a story about getting caught in a tree and hanging there. And then when he fell down, it did something. Things got broken. How many things have yours gotten broken?
I've been in the hospital a couple of times. I bruised my pelvis really, really bad, to the point where I couldn't run without pain for 5 months. Couldn't walk for a couple of days, and it was just a bruise, no fracture. But I do have a number of concussions, both from being, growing up as a full contact boy, playing sports and all those things, but also from jumping from combat, close, proximity detonation of high explosive kind of stuff. I've got in the neighborhood of 12 concussions. So as beat up as my body is, bad knees and back and all the stuff that the VA has determined is wrong with me, I've also whacked my melon enough times that that's something that I gotta live with and deal with for the rest of my life.
Well, that's a shame, because somebody like you, if you hadn't had so much sense knocked out of your head and all these accidents, you probably could have written a book or something.
I could have done that. Actually, I did do that.
What?
Amazing.
You wrote a book?
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Yes. Actually, it's interesting. It's the first of 3, but it's the only one that's published so far. There it is right there. Keep moving, keep shooting.
I love the name. Right away. You and I have a mutual friend, Paul Bryan, who's going to be on, as a matter of fact, this week as well. And he's the one that goes, Charlie, this guy's right up your alley. You got to meet this guy. You got to have him on your show. And Keep Moving, Keep Shooting is the very first book by our friend here. Oh, by the way, what rank did you retire?
I retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Okay. That's big. Lieutenant colonel, then you got general.
Yep.
So lieutenant colonel, or you just call him colonel. I admire anybody who writes anything. You could write a pamphlet and I would be impressed and think that you're smarter and better than I am. I'm impressed with anybody who can sit down and actually do what you've done. And it's a great novel. Is this self-published or did you get somebody to pick you up?
So it's a hybrid publishing, so co-publishing kind of thing. It's a smaller publishing company named Kohler Books out of Virginia Beach. And, when you're an unknown author with an unknown product, to try and get in with Random House or, one of the big publishing houses, it's a challenge. And I looked into self-publishing, and truthfully, I was like, there is so much crap in there that I don't want to deal with, that I very quickly abandoned that.
And a lot of times to get it done cheaply, if you don't have the money for it to self-publish, you're basically signing your rights away, aren't you?
Yeah. And so with this company, they do all the hard work. So I had an editor assigned to me. They did the cover design. They got the ISBN numbers. They're wired into a print house and wired into Amazon and Barnes and Noble for distribution.
I heard the story about the cover, by the way, and you said this is not what you wanted.
That's not actually the cover
that
I
outvoted.
Yeah, I did. So the owner,
That's
John Kohler,
that's not a military Jeep, is it?
no, that's just a Jeep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the owner's a graphic design guy by trade, so he gets very involved. And they have a great process. The cover design, they put together five designs, and then they narrow it down to two between the author and the publishing company, and then you put it up to a public vote. And of the two that were in there, I picked the other one, and I got outvoted 2-1. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even close. So. Yeah, it's a great cover. Don't get me wrong. Out of the two, I would have picked the other one.
I'm a huge fan of Jack Reacher, Mission Impossible, and the Bourne the Bourne movies. Quit it. I don't care who it is. I mean, Matt Damon was quite impressive, but then Jeremy Renner, I'm like, okay, this is a great movie too. Yeah. It's just a great series. And before that, I'm a big Tom Clancy fan. And the whole Jack Ryan.
Yeah, and this is the same genre. And those, all of those, this book fits.
There's been a hole. There's been a hole for that since Clancy died. There's nobody doing that kind of stuff and putting in that kind of research. Well, you didn't have to do that much research because you actually lived it, didn't you?
It makes it a little bit easier when it's pretty much your life. So not a lot of research involved. And the writing project itself was, I never intended to publish, so I was writing for fun. Didn't really care about content, or I never had a storyline. I never had an arc. I never had an outline. I was just writing. And then the book kind of, came out of all of that. But, you make those comparisons. My dad, who's one of those people that when I was a kid threw books at me. My dad eats books. He's a voracious reader, and he would throw things at me and say, here, read this. And it was early Clancy, Hunt for Red October and Red Storm Rising and all the early stuff. They're super detailed and all that. He
to the point of ad nauseum at some point.
Yeah, especially like Red Storm
I
Rising
enjoyed his books. I've read many of them, but the ones you just named, in fact, or some of them. But he get into detail about what some particular screw looked like in some piece of submarine hardware. I'm like, oh, quit, move on already. Yeah. Very detailed.
But that's. We all writers have influences, and I would say that I was influenced by early Clancy just because I read it as a kid. W.E.B. Griffin, who's written a number of series of books. My style has been compared to him. I won't ever say that I copied him, but definitely an influence because I love the way that he writes, and he writes some great historical fiction stuff. So if those are in your wheelhouse, you are definitely going to love Keep Moving, Keep Shooting.
And you said this is the first of 3. So you already are they completed, or you just got them in your head?
No, they're done. 2 and 3 are done. They're sitting on my laptop right now. But I, as a co-published project, really what I need to do is sell a certain amount of copies of Keep Moving, Keep Shooting to get the next at least one published, and if not both of them. So
how do we find it? How do we get one?
So you can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Very, very easy. Sold in all written formats. I'm still working on the audiobook, which is always a challenge.
But if you need a voiceover guy, let me know. I've done a few audiobooks. I love doing that.
I might take you up on that.
Heck yeah.
So ebook, it's on Apple Books. You can get it on Kindle format as well as softcover, hardcover. That's it right there. Keep Moving, Keep Shooting. You can search it by title. You can search it by my name. But if you're interested in an autographed copy, which I believe you have, you can also buy an autographed copy from my website, which is claynovak-author.com. I sell them myself, sign them, and personalize them as they go out. See, you can see it right there.
That is very cool. Right. I appreciate that very much. What is KMKS?
Keep Moving, Keep Shooting.
That's it. There it is.
That's it. Keep moving, keep shooting.
Why is that important, by the way? In my military training in the State Guard, they said, find a place, hunker down, and don't move. No, I'm just kidding. Why is that important to keep moving, keep shooting?
So, it's something that I learned, and the main character, Terry Davis, go figure, big surprise, is a retired Army infantry officer who is, moved on with his life and is enjoying a quiet life in the Midwest. And, finds himself, he's living with a lady who works under the defense umbrella, very, very smart woman, PhD, expert in Middle East studies. And they find themselves in something that looks a lot like a national security threat, potentially domestic terrorist threat. And as the story develops, it develops into something else significant. And you can read through it, but it is still a risk to the sovereignty of the United States, but it is not a domestic terror threat, at least not as the way it presents itself. But what Terry learned as a young man was, when in doubt, and when you don't know what's going to happen, the last thing you need to do is you need to keep moving and keep shooting, and that'll keep you alive. And he relies on that, becomes it's not just a mantra for a firefight, it's a mantra for his life and kind of how he lives. So
as far as I'm concerned, it's a mantra for everybody who wants to see this nation set right again. And when I say right, that's not an accident. I use that word because I'm on the right. And I do believe the right is right. And we've been complacent for too long. We've hunkered down. Okay, we're safe here. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to get involved. I don't hear you. For too long, we've got to keep moving, keep shooting in all aspects of our life in so many ways. Because if you just sit there in one place, you've now created anybody who wants to take you out for anything that you believe in or stand for. They know right where you are. And they know how to attack, and they'll come after you. That's why you got to keep moving and keep shooting.
And we've become non-confrontational, Charlie. I think that's one of the biggest things, is that people have complacency's part of it, but I think the fear of ruffling feathers, the fear of upsetting someone else, the fear of all of those things, people have backed away from adult grown-up conversations. What's this show? Politics and religion, the two things you're never supposed to talk about, right? There's your mug, right? People buy those things. But it used to be that was a courtesy, right? You didn't talk about religion and politics. It was a courtesy because it always turned into an argument. Well, that has expanded to everything. Like, we don't talk about anything confrontational in public anymore because everybody gets upset and nobody wants to upset anybody else. And we're always worried about everybody else's feelings. And that has bled into everything you're talking about. Now we've bred the fight out of ourselves. There are so few people that are willing to stand up for what they believe in. And truthfully, I think the right is more complicit in this. I think it's a more I hate to say polite version or polite side of the aisle. We avoid confrontation, and we have for so long. The left is loud, and they have been for a long time. And we keep things so civil, or try to keep things so civil, when the other side of the aisle is not. They're clearly not.
You and I we're about a decade apart, but we saw the last shining moments of strength and integrity in the Republican Party with Ronald Reagan as president. Ever since then, I mean, there used to be, to have somebody like Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Ted Cruz, people are standing up and going, wait a minute, what? No. And I don't care what happens. This is not going to continue. I got to say something, do something. Used to be all over the Republican Party. Now it's considered an anomaly. And they need to sit down and shut up, according to the Republican Party. That's the worst part. What's happened to our party, my brother? What's happened? I had somebody yesterday asking me, so Charlie, do you think that there's going to be a civil war? And I said, well, we have the guns and ammo for it, but few people have the courage. All they do is talk. They talk a lot. But when the ATF or the FBI or whatever letter mafia shows up at your door because you happen to have something on a little podcast you did, are you actually going to take up arms against them? No, you're not. Stop talking like you're going to. You're not going to. So what do we do in those regards? We better be voting.
Yeah.
And I found out here in California, I'm not sure where you are. I think you're back east. I found out in California, A third of the population claims to be evangelical Christian, but only about 40% of those Christians are even registered to vote. And their attitude is, well, I don't want to vote against God. Well, God is the one that blessed us with this nation. God is the one that caused this to happen. When you look at our founding fathers' writings and papers and the documents and the lifeblood and the backbone of this country, God's all over it.
It is.
You can't be bothered to actually go and vote life, if nothing else. Are you voting for life? Because the other side's voting to kill everything, including the unborn. They seem to be hell-bent now on depopulation, even coming into things. I don't know how much you want to get into politics. You're an author now, and you're an Army guy. Maybe you can't, you won't. But my question to you is, and if you choose not to talk about this, I understand. Are we ready militarily for an attack from China, Russia, whatever, fill in the blank?
No, absolutely not. And I would tell you that, it's the path that the military has taken, and this goes back decades. We chose way back post World War II and really post Korea. The Soviet Union was going one direction, which was mass and numbers. They bought cheap, right? Their equipment was garbage. It was cheap, but they bought a lot of it, like tons. I mean, thousands and thousands of vehicles. They had a massive conscript army. They went cheap and big. We went small and high tech, right? And we've continued down that path, and it served us well. 91 Desert Storm, everybody looked at that and they were, oh, we're putting bombs through air shafts and we've got all this technology and look at how easy this is. That's great. Well, the Chinese have gone big and technical. So their equipment they have tons of it. They have a massive army. And oh, by the way, they're technologically advanced. So we're outgunned. We're probably equal in technology or fairly close. I would say if there's a difference between our level of tech and theirs, it's probably minimal. But they've got us outgunned in pure numbers. So
there's all kinds of talk that the Chinese Navy is bigger and better than ours now.
Sure. Well, and we don't have any help. Like we literally don't have any help. The Brits, I don't think even have an aircraft carrier anymore. I think they decommissioned their last one. So when it boils down, and if they haven't, then they only have one. I can tell you that for a fact. So when it comes down to it, and it comes to potential for a global conflict again, we're not getting anything. Like the NATO is a shell. I mean, when it came to helping Ukraine, if you go back and you watch the film and the interviews of the earliest days of, NATO's got to step in and help Ukraine, the chancellor of the chairman of the German military was ashamed at where their military was at. Didn't have the money or the ability or the equipment to donate anything to Ukraine. They were the stopping block. You know this, right? When it was the Soviet Union coming through the Fulda Gap, Germany was it. And they had everything. They had us behind them, but they had all technologically advanced stuff. They had a great army, very professional. Now they're hollowed out because they don't have the stomach for it and they don't have the money for it. So I think their first donation to Ukraine was a pile of helmets. And I'm not exaggerating. They had nothing to give. So if it comes to a global conflict, we're not getting a lot of help. We're just not. So we're kind of on our own. If we think that NATO or the UN is going to, not the UN, but specifically NATO is going to step in and help us.
No, the UN as well. They're not going to help us. They're not going to be there.
No, there's no help to be had.
No,
I can tell you that for a fact.
We've set ourselves up as the police force of the world, which always baffled me. Why are we getting involved in that? Why are we over there? Why are we sending money to this? We're pissing off a nuclear power, for heaven's sake, when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, where we're fighting for freedom. No, you're not, you idiots. You're not doing that. You're giving away billions of dollars, and it's unaccounted for. You have no idea where it's even going or how it's being used. This is insane what's happening. And to me, here's my theory, Clay. Here comes conspiracy theory, Charlie. It's not an accident. There's no better way when you have leaders who are hell-bent on depopulation. No better way to kill hundreds of thousands, even millions, than a good old nuclear war. and it's not going to affect any of them. Take everybody out. They don't care, because there have been things done handling with this Russia-Ukraine thing. And what have we done to push Russia to this point, by the way? Nobody even talks about that. And now we're right in the middle of it. What's going to happen when they run out of soldiers in Ukraine? And we're like, well, we still have to stand up against Russia. Well, not really. President Trump was pretty friendly with them, which didn't make him a Putin puppet. It made him a smart leader who was like, we want to work synergistically and together for the benefit of everyone, even if you are communist. South Korea, even Cuba. Which is so funny because the left loves China, worships and adores it, this communist country, but yet they hate Russia. I don't get it. What's the deal? They're all communists. Why aren't y'all chumming up with all of them? Because they're a nice enemy to blame everything on. So we're spending all this money to piss off a nuclear power. And when it comes to that, the Democrats, two things are benefited. One, they get their depopulation done in a massive way for them. The other is we don't change horses midstream. Now, Biden is such a mumbling, fumbling piece of crap, and has been, by the way, his entire political career. I'm not just saying that now because of his age. He's a bad man. He's always been a bad man. He's always been a liar and a deceiver, and doing his father's work just as quickly as possible for his time is short. Oh no, I'm a Catholic. Shut up. I think that they feel if they can get in a real big military conflict before the presidential 2024 election, we will not, and traditionally we don't throw out whatever party's in the White House at the time. Would they be doing that? Would they risk the lives of hundreds of thousands of innocents just to maintain and hold power? Absolutely they would.
Especially if they're not American. I mean, if it's, I think that economics plays a huge role in this. I would tell you that the value of an alliance with Russia economically doesn't do as much as an alliance with China for those in power. I think we have too many trade dependencies on China. There's too much product that's coming out of there that we need, especially when you
pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals.
We don't even make our own aspirin anymore, Clay.
Yeah, batteries for EVs, all that stuff that's coming out of that part of the world. And oh, by the way, it's not just China within China's borders. Understand that China owns the vast majority of the African continent at the same time. So it's not just exclusive to, everything inside of Asia. It's everything that they also own and is available and restricted to the continent of Africa, which again comes to the EV, the lithium, and everything that's coming out of there. So
all the mines,
and they do, and it's not hard to look up. It's a very easy thing, but they do own a significant portion of Africa, both through private business and then my understanding is also through government purchase. But the impact of having an ongoing conflict with Russia, very little or significantly less economic impact on us than it would be if we pick the same fight with China, right? And oh, by the way, it depends on who's getting paid by who. The pockets that are being lined and who's lining them determines a lot. Ukraine, obviously, we know the connection with the Biden family. It's blatant. It's out there. We're just all waiting on whatever's going to come out of the trial, which will probably be nothing. But we also know China, right? China's lining pockets as well. So it's for those in power to back Ukraine, continue to back Ukraine, continue to have this ongoing fight with Russia. And then, oh, by the way, be nice with China helps them. It's just like you said, it has nothing to do with politics or diplomacy or the betterment of the globe. It is really about them maintaining power and maintaining their own lifestyle that they all enjoy as career politicians sitting in Washington, D.C. and their retirement plans, because, nobody stays in the White House forever, but they do all leave there a lot wealthier than they started, amazingly enough. It is what it is, man. I mean,
I
it's,
know.
you know,
And I'm the mayor of Reelsville, just like
Yeah.
Rush Limbaugh used to say. I mean, I'd probably be doing so much better and so much more successful if I was all like happy and it's going to be good and we're going to win, like I see so many other podcasters do. But I'm like, no, there's only one safe place to live now at this point in our history, and that's in Christ Jesus. This is a God thing. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to stop voting. I'm not going to stop exposing evil, which is what we do here. Ephesians 5:11, be no part of evil, but instead expose it even. So we're going to keep doing that. Someday, maybe, God willing, we'll actually get paid to do it. That'd be exciting. But in the meantime, this is a ministry, and we're not going to quit, because I think that we have to keep moving and keep shooting, Clay.
Theoretically or literally at some point. I hope it never gets to that. I really do. You know, you
me too.
There's the discussion of civil war. I think it's a horrible, even the concept of that is horrible.
It is, of course.
But you know, as a mantra, theoretically, whatever you're firing off, whether it's, you know,
when I say keep shooting, I'm describing what I am trying to do, and what you're doing right now. And my producer, Kirk Tashawn, Forefrontaerial Productions, we keep moving, we keep shooting. We're not going to sit back and go, oh, well, I hope Jesus comes back soon. Until that point, we're told to expose that, to put that light out into the world, not to hide it under a basket, as Jesus put it. So we're not going to quit. We're not going to quit.
And I do the same thing. I write a blog. I co-host another podcast, and, you know, I expose as much as I possibly can. And listen, I hold those accountable. And sometimes it's both sides of the aisle. You know, it is what it is. If you're not doing your job and you're not doing what's best for this country, I'm going to call you out. And it doesn't matter what party you are or what color your shirt is. You're responsible, because you're a leader and you got elected into that position, or you got appointed into that position. You have a duty to your responsibility in that position. So it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Tea Party, Independent, Green Party. I don't care. If you suck at your job and you're part of our government, you need to do better. And I'm going to call you out for it.
Amen. Tell us all that story about the flag behind your left shoulder.
The flag behind my left shoulder is
your military left.
Yeah, my military left is that one is actually one of my grandfather's casket flag. I come from a military service family. I'm the only career military, but just about everybody served. I had two grandfathers that served in World War II, both air crew, one in B-17s over Europe, one in torpedo bombers in the Pacific.
Wow.
Wow. My dad served. He's a Vietnam era veteran, was in the Air Force, volunteered, not drafted, volunteered for 4 years of service, 66 to 70 in the Air Force. So I won't say it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to put a uniform on, but it kind of was, at least in my own head. But, you know, that's one of those, I hate to say small things, but that's one of my two grandfathers. The other one is actually on a bookshelf over my other shoulder. I have both of those, in my possession. It's a couple of things that I'm pretty proud of.
I can imagine. That's awesome, man. And one more time, the book is called Keep Moving, Keep Shooting, from Clay Novak, middle initial E, Clay E. Novak. What's the E stand for?
Edward, family name. One grandfather's first name, one grandfather's middle name.
All right. And I'm Charles Lee Simons. And I really believe you can never really be friends with somebody until you know what their middle name is. I don't know why. That's just my little life philosophy.
I've never heard that. I like that.
I just made it up. Nobody ever says that. I'm the only one. I really appreciate you very much, and thank you for spending time with us, Clay. And I hope all 22 million of my viewers and listeners, as far as you know, on Do Not Talk, will rush to buy your book and put you over the top, man, because we need to have this made into a movie.
You're right. That's what everybody keeps asking for. I get a lot of feedback on the book. The first one is always, quick read. Goes by super fast. I actually had one guy tell me that he read it in a cross-country flight from LA to New York. Most people say it's 1 or 2 sittings. The second thing people always tell me is I never saw that ending coming, which that's always a plus as a writer. And then the third one is when's the sequel coming out? Oh, by the way, when is somebody going to make it into a movie? I get those every time.
Who do you want playing you in the movie? I'm sorry, your main character.
The main character. I have visions in my head. It's a fun game to play, and I like playing it with people who've read the book. If you made it into a movie, who would play who? As I was writing it, because I didn't write it, it's not me. He's a lot like me, but he's not me. I actually had a guy named James Dale Badge in my head as I was writing it. If you've seen the movie 13 Hours, he played Tyrone Woods. Roan Woods, that actor is the guy that was in my head when I was writing the book. There's some others that could do it. Cole Hauser, I think, would be great. You could put a lot of people in there as Terry Davis, and I think that would work.
Right on. Thank you, my friend. Talk to you later. May God bless you.
Anytime. I'll come back anytime, Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Don't say that. We'll put you on every week. I'm Charlie.Simons. This is Do Not Talk. Thank you, Kirk Deshawn, Forefrontaerial Productions, for making this happen. As always, thank you to you for going to do-not-talk.com and buying a shirt or buying a mug. It's a big 15-ounce mug, buddy. And the two things we always talk about, you're never supposed to talk about religion and politics on the other side of that mug. This shirt, very high quality with a collar that actually stays up, which is novel. Especially since I'm an XL, and they always seem to, every t-shirt, just because you're XL doesn't mean you're a big fat guy. And the collars are always way down here. I hate that. This collar stays up where it's supposed to. I love that. So join me, and you'll be helping the show by buying some of our merchandise there at do-not-talk.com. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America, but most importantly, may America bless God.